Welcome to Moments with Mary Ann. I'm so delighted we're spending this time here today. We have a very interesting show coming right up with special guest Lori Rader-Day, and she's here to talk to us about her new novel, Under a Dark Sky. Now, Lori has won numerous awards for her last 3 books, including Anthony Award for Best First Novel, the 2016 Mary Higgins Clark Award, and the Barry Award. What makes Lori's style so interesting is that she's been dubbed the Agatha Christie of modern times. So this is a real treat to be able to spend this time with her and talk with her not only about her writing process, but her books and her inspiration. So let's welcome to the show Lori Rader-Day.
Thanks for having me.
What a pleasure it is to have you here. And my goodness, your book, will have people on the edge of their seats.
Well, I hope so. My goal is to make people miss their train stop.
I'm sure you've probably done that with this book. And we were just talking a minute ago, and congratulations, you've been nominated for an award on this book as well.
Well, I've been nominated for previous books. This book is brand new, so it's usually about a year before award nominations come in. But I've had an embarrassment of riches when it comes to award nominations.
Mm-hmm. And you see, you've had quite a few of them for your other books, which has got to be, as a writer, very exciting.
It's sort of the cherry on top. I mean, you can't expect that sort of thing, but it's really gratifying when it happens.
Yeah, when it all comes together. Well, and so why don't you share with us a little bit about your inspiration? Like, what started you on this path of writing mysteries and thrillers?
I've been writing most of my life. I think I started writing when I was about 6 or 7 years old, just, dabbling for most of my life. But I didn't get serious until I was about 33 or 34, and I took an MFA, a Master of Fine Arts in Creative Writing, so an actual degree, where more than teaching you how to write, they mostly just make sure that you have time and an audience and deadlines. Deadlines are very key to getting writing done. And that was in 2006. So I started getting serious around then, mostly writing short stories. That's just how I got started. And then one of the short stories got long, pretty long, about 40 or 50 pages. And one of my teachers said, yeah, that's because it's a novel. Keep writing. So I was surprised to learn I was writing a novel. And then very soon after that, someone else who was reading the first 10 or 15 pages, a mystery writer, as it turned out, said, I think you might be a crime writer. Maybe not, but just think about it, because there's a crime in this, first section that I've read for you to give you feedback. And if you solve that crime, it might be that your book is a crime novel. So mystery, in a way, chose me.
Well, it's so interesting how people discover their own writing path, and it seems like a lot of times they don't set out to become one type of writer. It's something that just kind of evolves through time.
I totally agree. I mean, I think I'm probably, evolving now, even as I'm writing my next book. Someone said the other day that my last novel, The Day I Died, could have been women's fiction. I don't know if that was a praise or what, but many novels have mysteries in them when they are not technically mystery novels.
Well, I think it's just very interesting when you look at all that it takes to write a book like that. So when you sit down to write your book, write these different characters, is it something that takes you, like you kind of have an idea of what each character is shaped with, or is it something that unfolds as well?
I'm usually a little bit more haphazard than anything that I would recommend for anyone else. So we use a phrase called pantsing. There are plotters. They plot their novels, they plan it, and then there are those who don't do that sort of work. Those are pantsers. They're writing by the seat of their pants. And I'm pretty far on the pantser side of things. So I usually have 1 or 2 ideas, that percolate for a while. And then when I feel like the story is starting to come together, when I've got 2 or 3 points on the map and I can start writing, I do. But I don't usually know how the ending is going to go. I don't always know who's done it, right? These are whodunits. for the most part. So I don't always know who's done it. I don't always know why these stories have happened to these characters. But I think that's part of the fun for me. I like to write and explore, and, when it's interesting to me, I'm hoping that it's interesting to the readers as well.
Well, and as you're writing each of these characters, are you drawing any of the characteristics for them based off of maybe your life and you personally or people you know?
I don't really write about people I know, although I do find that my own life does kind of sneak in every once in a while. Many of the characters draw from things that I've thought or felt. Not entirely. They're usually a lot more messed up than I am. But even the villains sometimes are borrowing from things that I have thought or have noticed. So it's usually me. I don't like to borrow from real people if I can help it.
Yeah, and I can see why, because a lot of times people might think it would be fun to, if there's someone that's mean to them or doesn't treat them quite, as well or with respect or what have you, they're like, oh, we need to put this person in there and have them maybe not make it through the next chapter.
I mean, that's kind of fun to think about revenge writing. It's a joke that I've made, but I don't really want to spend any more time with people who have treated me badly. When I go to write, I really like to, get away from that. It's sort of an escape for me. It's my happy place to be able to write and to have written. So I don't really like the villains of my real life to show up there all that much.
I don't blame you. I wouldn't give them any more time than they already have, Like, that's all you get. Well, yeah, it's like, oh, real life is enough. So your book, Under a Dark Sky, it talks about dark sky preserves. So why don't you share with our listeners what that is and why they're important?
Sure. So the International Dark Sky Association is who designates these spaces. So there are dark sky spaces is the general term, and then there are certain kinds of spaces. So there are preserves, and those are the really remote locations. I think there's an island off the coast of Wales. The entire island is a dark sky preserve. I'm writing about a dark sky park in this book, and a dark sky park is a little different because it's a space where light pollution is being controlled so that visitors, normal visitors to the park, can come and see the nighttime sky the way nature intended. So a dark sky space generally is where light is very controlled so that, we protect our dark sky spaces for generations into the future. For the parks, it's, these are state parks, national parks where you can visit and hike during the day. There are trails usually, maybe some lake shore to play on, a beach. But at night, they often have programs for, stargazing and talking about the constellations and storytelling and that sort of thing.
Well, and I know I've had some friends that do stargazing, and it's a very serious sport, and any, kind of light pollution disrupts that, whatsoever.
Yeah, even, the flashlights that you carry when you're going, you're going to a dark space, so you think, well, I'm going to carry a flashlight with me, which is a great thing to do. However, a regular flashlight is going to disrupt other people's experience of the dark sky. So there are actually special dark sky flashlights, or you can actually modify your own with like a red film. And I visited the dark sky park that I borrowed for my book. It's the Headlands International Dark Sky Park in Mackinac City, Michigan. Beautiful location. It was the closest dark sky park to where I live in Chicago, so it was an easy choice. And they had done some really great work to make their park visible online, so I could research it before I could even visit it. But I did get to go, finally, and it was a wonderful experience. It was a little cloudy, unfortunately. I think every time there's a big sky event, you can find people who are like, oh, it was cloudy for me. It was cloudy for me, unfortunately, for the Dark Sky Park visit. But even with the cloud cover, it was really peaceful and enjoyable, and I can't wait to get back.
Yeah, those are definitely fun experiences. And so for our listeners who are still learning about dark sky and the preserve, so how has population and climate change, how has that affected dark sky events and just dark sky in general?
Well, our population keeps spreading out, building out on our urban areas, so even the non-urban areas. It's difficult for a lot of people in the United States to get to a dark sky area. We don't often think about that. I live in Chicago, and you can go a long time without thinking, I haven't seen a star in a really long time. But that's actually the truth. There are not very many stars visible from my back porch in Chicago. And I think people don't think that's a big deal, but, light pollution is pollution, and it can be very affecting. So some of the results to our ecosystems include things like, migratory birds who can't find their migratory pattern, and so don't get where they're supposed to go, don't pass by the places where they can eat, and end up killing huge populations of their species. But also humans are really affected by light. You've probably heard about the science about, how you shouldn't be up on your tablet or phone right before you go to bed because of the blue light. Well, that's what we're talking about. That's actually light pollution right there in your bedroom.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, without a doubt. Well, it's interesting. I mean, having been in Colorado where it's the mile-high city and you're so much closer, to the stars in many ways, when you're able to see them, just a huge range of stars that you can't when you're in other areas makes it, that much more special. And so I understand what you're talking about.
And Colorado seems like a great place to look at some dark skies.
Mm-hmm. They've got lots of little tucked away places. Well, and in your book, I mean, you've got. We're not going to dive into it too much because it's a novel and we don't want to give it away.
Thank you.
Would you like to? No worries. What would you like to share with our listeners about your book? I'll let you choose what to share.
Sure. Under Dark Sky is the story of Eden Wallace, who is a young widow who has found paperwork in her husband's effects that he reserved a couple of nights at the Dark Sky Park for them on their anniversary, or near their anniversary anyway. And so she decides she's going to go, even though she has actually developed a fear of the dark. What she's deciding to do is to get her life back. So she decides to go to this park and not exactly celebrate their anniversary. You'll have to read the book to find out what that means, but to sort of try to get back to life. She's been a little isolated. Things are pretty stuck for her, and she needs to get back to the living. Except when she gets there, there's a lot more living going on in the guest house than she was expecting. She was expecting to have it to herself, and unfortunately there's a group of 20-somethings having a college reunion of sorts in the house. And so she decides, this isn't going to work, I'm going to leave. In the night, one of them is killed. It's a murder mystery, so I always have to get to the part where I say, and then there's a dead body, which is a little, if you don't like murder mysteries, that's where people stop listening.
Well, and so it's, with your book being a murder mystery, it kind of just takes off and snowballs from there and turns into quite an adventure for the main character.
Yeah, I think she gets a lot of living done in that Dark Sky Park. She's there for about a week and starts to build a little bit of a community, which is what she's missing from her real life back home.
Well, I'm sure a lot of people, minus the murder aspect, I'm sure a lot of people could really relate to that, just that whole aspect of, being, lacking that community.
Yeah, and I think so. She's arriving in the park, and her life is isolated. Her constellation of friends, if you'll allow it, has really dwindled because she's so miserable in her young widowhood and doesn't really know which way to go. But by being in the park, by stepping out of her comfort zone, by being an active person in her own life, she starts to meet new people and find new purpose in her life.
Well, it sounds almost like a direction book on how to do that for some people, you know? It's like, hey, you can get out there and do something different and meet other people.
Yeah, she learns about dark sky parks, of course, and meets the park director who knows a lot about the pollution aspect of the dark sky parks, but also the stories that the stars tell us. And she starts to, be interested in her own, more than just her own little tiny spot in the universe.
Well, and are there certain, with your books, I notice that you have like certain areas of the country that you tend to focus on. And I'd love for you to share with us what those are and why.
Well, I'm a Midwestern girl. I'm from Indiana originally, and I live in Chicago. I've lived here for about 17 years. So I love stories about the Midwest. I think we have plenty of people who can tell stories about Los Angeles or New York. There are plenty of mysteries set in England. There are plenty of mysteries set in all these places. But, the Midwest is a big open place with a lot of great writers in it. And I really like to discover a new mystery that's set in the Midwest. So that's what I like to write. My first book was set in the Chicago area. I think I've written about Indiana, Chicago, and now Michigan. So I'm pretty excited when I can write about a place that's interesting and that not a lot of people have heard about.
And do you find that when you write about any of these specific areas, there are places that you've been to for a long time or you've visited, so you can really kind of draw up on the neighborhood?
Oh, absolutely. Writing about Chicago, for instance, I wrote about the lake shore. I borrowed the campus of the university I was working at the time, changed some things, obviously. And then when I was writing about Michigan, I started writing about it having not visited the exact park, but then I got to visit it and make sure that things were right. I got to talk to people there and visit the actual park and make sure that I had written it as closely to reality as I could.
Yeah, so when people read your book and visit these places, they're like, gosh, okay, I'm like walking in the footsteps of these characters.
I've actually sent a couple of my friends to the Headlands International Dark Sky Park in Mackinac City, Michigan. My sister and a friend of mine have both visited that park since I started writing about it because I told them about it. It's a great place to visit. You should all go.
Well, I think it really brings awareness to places that people don't really realize that are available to us, and we can take advantage of that, and gosh, having that ability to see, just the entire stars out there, it's such a big deal.
Yeah, and there are quite a few places. If you're not in the Midwest, there are also lots of other dark sky spaces around the United States and abroad. If you go to darkskies.org, that's the IDA's website, and you can actually search by zip code. You can find a place to see the stars near you. There are actually towns as well as these remote locations or these parks. There are actually towns, communities that are dark sky communities, and these are just towns that have controlled their light pollution and met the IDA requirements, and I imagine they're lovely places to visit as well.
Well, and, it kind of gets to the next question I have for you here. And because we've talked about your writing process and your book, and, of course, we don't want to give too much away of Under a Dark Sky. But I'd love for you to share with us also, from the time you started writing to today, have you seen a shift with the presence of women writers in, like, the mystery genre?
I don't know if I would call it a shift. This is a conversation that I'm seeing playing out right now. There are so many best-selling women thriller writers right now. The Gone Girl, The Girl on the Train, The Girl, all those books. But I don't know if it's a trend. I don't like to think of it as a trend because it makes it seem like something that's going to end someday. When in fact I think we've always been writing these kinds of stories. Agatha Christie was one of my early favorites. Mary Higgins Clark was one of my early favorites, who's still working, by the way, still publishing. I don't know if it's any different or if it's just, people are noticing. And these stories are wonderful. Gillian Flynn's Gone Girl is so popular because it was well-written and shocking and surprising. And I think she's opened the door for a lot of us to be noticed right now. But hopefully it's not a trend. Hopefully it won't end.
Well, I think it's great that we're having more women writers be recognized in these different fields. Where before you'd see one or two, and then most of it would be like, oh, that's kind of cute. But I mean, it's nice that women writers are being taken seriously in these different fields.
Oh, this is not cute, Marianne. These are not cute stories.
I know. I know.
But some of my favorites are women writers: Tana French, Megan Abbott, Laura Lippman. There's so many wonderful stories going on right now.
Oh, yeah, I completely agree with you. Oh my goodness. Well, and it's interesting because to me it seems like there's been a shift. When you look at that, the genre of thriller or mystery books, there's been some really great writers as far as female writers out there for some time, but not as many as men. And so it's nice to see where I think just women are being recognized more for their literary work, regardless if they're men or women, but they're just producing such great works that people are, being attracted to it.
I think one of the issues is it's the recognition. It's not that they weren't writing them, it's that they weren't, and still aren't, getting as many reviews or as many, column inches out there in the media. That's still a problem. I'm a member of Sisters in Crime, which is a national organization that works to get recognition for women writers, and our work is not done, unfortunately. There's lots of room for, highlighting women writers and the work they do.
Well, and so if we have a young writer or a writer who wants to be connected with that group, can you mention that group again so that they can, see about connecting with you in that group and just being a part of that?
Sisters in Crime is a national organization, and they have chapters all over the United States, too. So you can join the national organization at, I wish I had the email, the website. I think it's sistersincrime.org. And then you can join a local chapter so you can meet writers in your area, learn how to make your writing better, and also about the crime fiction field, as well as meet some experts in the field to help make sure your characters are drawn from reality.
Well, and you're right. It's sistersincrime.org, so they can hop over there and check that out. And then, I'd love for you to share how your journalism background, and you've talked about this a little bit before, and how it kind of moved you from where you're at to the thriller writing. Once you started doing the thriller writing, did you decide that, hey, this is my niche, and I'm going to stick with this?
I think so I have 2 degrees in journalism, and I have never, not once, been what you would actually call a journalist. But fortunately for me, the journalism training has always been really valuable in everything that I've tried to do. So I worked in public relations for a long time, about 20 years, in higher education and healthcare, and then started writing seriously. And the training I got from all of that work and my degrees in journalism have really helped me when it comes time to promote my work. And then the actual journalism training, the writing succinctly and finding your point, I think it's probably been a really good tool for writing. The writing to deadline, writing every day, which I don't actually do, but I try to. The discipline that you need to write a full novel, it's not a big project you can get done in a day. It's something you have to work at over a long period of time. And the discipline of journalism has really paid off there, I think.
Yeah. Well, having that education, that background really helps. And so for people who maybe are young writers that are looking for a path to follow, sometimes, they kind of get a little, they're not quite sure what to do. And it's good to hear that your journalism background has really helped you with your writing.
And, of course, English courses, teach you how to think about literature in a way that would be really useful to someone who wanted to write it.
Mm-hmm. And how to use that. Well, and so, Lori, if someone would like to connect with you and learn more about your books and be part of your community, where could they go?
Or they can look me up on Rader-Day.com. And then if they want to get more involved with the mystery community, I would suggest looking into Sisters in Crime and also Mystery Writers of America, two organizations where they can just meet a lot of writers who are where they are, where they're trying to get to be one step ahead so that they can figure out how to be who they want to be.
And I know on your website you have listed a ton of events. I don't even know how you have time to do all this.
You figured me out, Marianne.
I'm doing a little mystery hunting myself here, but I mean, you have a ton of stuff on your website. So people can either connect with you, meet you in person at one of your book signings, or just, I know you've got all these different events you're doing. My goodness,
I'm doing a lot of events. Yeah, I would love for people to come out and just say hi. I'll be talking about my book. I'll be talking about writing. I'm happy to answer questions about writing and publishing.
Well, Lori, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show with us today and to share with us your book, Under a Dark Sky.
Thank you so much for having me, Marianne.
Well, thank you, Lori. It's been such a pleasure to spend this time with you. Also, congratulations on the Barry Award nomination that you just received. I think that's such a big deal, so congratulations. We look forward to hearing more on that. Well, we're at the end of our time today. I would like to thank everyone for tuning in. You've been listening to Moments with Mary Ann. And remember, make every moment count.
In a single moment, your life can change. Moments with Mary Ann is a transformative hour that covers an endless array of topics with the best of the best. Her guests are leaders in their fields, ranging from inspirational authors, top industry leaders, and business and spiritual entrepreneurs. Each guest is gifted and a true visionary. A recognized leader in her own work, and while teaching others to develop, refocus, and grow, Mary Ann will bring the best guest and sometimes a special surprise. Don't miss this. You never know just which moment will change your life forever. Moments with Mary Ann airs every Thursday, Friday, and Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Mountain Time. Make sure to tune in and visit momentswithmaryann.com for more information.